Einhorn is Finkel. Finkel is Einhorn.
Oh, Ace Ventura. Is that what we're doing? Naming the movie from the movie line?
I love that movie, but no. That line is a great way to explain how self-boundaries and enforcing boundaries with others is the same.
Wait, what?
Self-boundaries, you. Boundaries with others, also you. Einhorn is Finkel. Finkel is Einhorn.
It's clever.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Career Corrective, your career lifeline that gives you laugh lines with Jenny and Allie.
Welcome, everyone. Today's episode, well, every episode, is all about you, our anxious achievers. But today's episode is really just all about you. We're diving into something, a little tiny tool that can transform not just your career. We're not just talking career, we're talking your entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do it through movies.
Yes. We're all okay.
Just
correct.
kidding.
Daniel's son cleaned the car. Yeah, I think that was a line in the movie.
Yeah.
Wait, do you know which one that is?
The Karate Kid?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember the Karate Kid.
We were driving the other day, and I will never forget seeing the original Karate Kid, where Daniel and his mom pack up their car.
Yeah.
And they're heading out to California.
Uh-huh.
And, well, they have to drive out there because that's where he becomes the Karate Kid.
Yeah, obviously. That's where they have to go.
What would the movie even be called without that?
Right.
But they packed up this green hatchback or a station wagon.
Did it have the wood on the side?
That's interesting that you say that because we saw this car in real life the other day. And Ken and I were both, oh my God, look at that car. And I said, it's the one from the Karate Kid. He goes, I think it's the one from National Lampoon's Vacation. The one with the wood panel on this.
Yeah.
But they're both green.
Right. It was the same. They just threw the wood on it for National Lampoon's Vacation.
I think the vacation car was probably 3 times the size, but
Gosh.
He was just being nice to me to say that I was also raised. Yeah, it could look like that.
Yeah, you're wrong, but...
So none of this is about you, our amazing anxious achievers. This is a tangent. This is what we do.
We'll get into it soon.
But we're not just going to do, and I think if you've listened to us before, you must know, it's not just going to be another conversation about self-care and we hope you do well. No, it's going to be real. The secret sauce is we're going to talk to you about how to balance holding yourself accountable, but being compassionate with yourself. It's a dance.
Yes, it is a dance.
I'm just excited.
I'm excited too, because you've helped me with this in the past. So I'm so happy that you're sharing your knowledge on this topic. Can you hone in on self-boundaries for our anxious achievers? And can you tell them why it's so important?
I like to think of it as a bank account.
Oh, yes. I remember this.
Like it was yesterday. You're in charge of your money in real life. That's why when you go to the bank, if you try and get money, they're going to ask you for lots of confirming information. They want to make sure that's your bank account.
Right.
Which, by the way, if anyone from a bank who's in charge ever listens to us, I would just like to say that if anyone goes and tries to put money in my account, you don't need to ask them for identification. Let anyone do that who wants to.
It's totally fine. Absolutely.
I'm just a blanket approval from me to all the banks. If they want to give me an extra hundo, I'm there for it.
For sure.
Taking money out? Yes. Make sure it's me. But if you have your money, your balance, you're doing well, you're flush, that's all up to you. You don't have anyone else in charge. I mean, unless you're Britney Spears, I guess, but that's a whole different
Oh my
episode.
gosh, please do not. We can't do that today.
Okay. But if you think about it in the metaphorical sense, which is what I'm trying to elucidate here for you, is that boundaries and your stamina for what's best for you is the same as your literal bank account. So there's going to be some things in your life that add to your bank account. Again, you or others, bring it on, add it away. But taking out, that's
Oh,
where the
no.
boundaries are important.
Yes. Yep.
So that's why this is all
Got to
about
be.
you. It all comes down to you. Where your money goes, the literal money. Maybe we should do a financial episode, but this is just a metaphor for today. But your actions always determine your success. And when you learn to set boundaries with yourself and stick to boundaries with yourself, you're really reinforcing your muscles and your capability to be able to do that with others. And they're really one and the same. So we're going to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I love when I give you examples and then you just work your magic. I have one. Okay, let's say you have a friend, right?
Yeah.
You let them know, hey, I'm not going to be answering any calls after a certain time, right? You're working, you're doing whatever, and I need this time blocked out. I'm not going to be answering my calls. And they call you anyways. Or
Yes.
let's say you have a coworker and you tell them, hey, I can't take on any extra tasks, and they still send you the tasks. Like,
Okay.
how is that on you? You told them, this is what
Uh-huh.
I'm not doing.
Perfect. The self boundary there is, do you decide to answer the phone? Do you
Oh, right.
do the task that your coworker asks you to do?
If I'm setting a boundary, then no, I'm not doing it. I have to enforce it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about enforcing the boundary with them, but it's keeping the boundary with yourself. Because if you're saying to someone, I'm not going to answer the phone or return texts, I'm not going to take your Pony Express delivery. You send me a letter, a message in a bottle, you can just, it's going to roll right back to your side of the ocean.
Yeah,
Okay.
forget it. Forget it.
I'm not going to take the bottle, cork out. If you did it right, you put a cork in there.
Yeah. I can't even read it if you didn't.
It's wet. It's wet now. But I'm not even going to know that because I'm not even going to take your bottle.
No.
If you aren't returning the text in your blockout time, it's because you're keeping the boundary with yourself. So if you're saying, Sandra, I can't return texts during this time, you're saying to yourself, self, put the phone on silent, put on do not disturb. That's the self boundary.
Right. What if they woof you? What if
Right.
you're being woofed throughout the day?
I think you have to explain to our listeners, just in case. I know what woofing is because of you, because I would not remember from those episodes. And this is what I mean about your humor. You'll take the thread of something funny and just carry it for years.
I do. I never let it go. So woofing was from an episode of The Office where Ryan was trying to create the latest and greatest technology. Woofing it would send a text to your phone, you'd get an email, you'd get a phone call. It was all the different ways of communication all at once.
I think it's
It's pretty funny.
another word for stalking, being annoying.
Yeah, too much, too much.
Wait, are you really asking me that though? What if somebody won't let it go? Or were you just kidding?
No, I was not kidding.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I was serious.
okay. You and I have talked about this, and this is exactly what I would tell our listeners. And this is what I do myself. If somebody is unaware, they don't have awareness, you know, the people in your life who do that. I think, well, what do you think I would say to that?
I think you would reinforce it. in the kindest way, but very firm, firm but fair. And then after you said that, if they continued to do it, I think it would be you go silent.
Right. Well, I think of these situations as a sandwich. You would say to the person who's doing that, the top of the sandwich, the bread is the communication. I'm stating clearly what the boundary is. And then the
Yes.
meat or the veggies of the sandwich, if that's your preference, is following through. This is the
Yeah.
action. And then the bread is telling them one more time. That's your sandwich is complete. If we don't understand after communication, action, and reinforcement of the communication, then the only thing you can do is show them, which is don't give it any attention.
This is actually interesting because this happened to me yesterday.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I swear this is perfect timing. Yesterday was crazy. It's been a crazy week. There's a lot of different things that are happening at work. We're implementing new software, yada yada. Nutty, right?
Okay.
And a certain person,
We won't get into details. We'll use this for the lesson, though, for our amazing listeners.
100%. So I get text in the morning and I let it go because I'm busy. And then I get another one, then a phone call, 5:30, and I get another call. Oh, I answered. And the person was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm working. I've been working all day, still working." I said, I'm going to have to call you back when I'm finished. And the person still had to tell me what they said in the text messages from earlier. I was like, I don't want to have to explain myself. I'm not answering. I'm working. I'm busy. But I just said, yeah, I saw them in your text. I couldn't acknowledge it. I will reach out when I can. And then that was it. But it was so persistent, just telling me information that's going on in their life. I get it, but I can't respond right now.
Right? Which would be clear from the not responding.
Exactly. I wasn't trying to be rude, but it's obviously if I could respond, I would respond. So I must be busy.
Right. My goodness. I want to talk to our listeners about there's this debate in the food world. I want to take a pause here. When you think about self boundaries, it's self discipline. And we've talked about this a little bit before. There's intuitive eating, people on social media right now that talk about intuitive eating.
Yes.
And the concept is no food is off limits, except if you have an allergy, of course, something
Yeah.
that's practical.
Right.
And then people get really riled up about it because they say that may work for you, but that's ridiculous. If I eat anything I want, I'll gain weight. But their whole point is on the intuitive eating is that it may be a process where you do gain weight, but in the end, it will help you become more in sync with a lifestyle that's healthy.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because it teaches you have a better relationship with food. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's not the point for this with boundaries. When you set a boundary with yourself and you're following through on self-discipline, I think the best approach and way to do that is to balance it with self-compassion.
That's the key right there.
Even though you may say, like the intuitive eaters, I'm able to do whatever I want, I'm choosing to focus on this healthy goal or that healthy goal because it gets me to where I want to go. But the way in which I do it, I'm going to have self compassion. So we're going to dive more into that, but I want to be really clear that I'm not suggesting in any way that boundaries are restrictive or forceful or making you shame yourself into doing something or just keep hammering away at self discipline. Self discipline in the balance of self compassion is where the magic lies.
Right. I get it. Love it. Can we bring it back to the idea of the bank account then? Yeah, let's bring it back.
Okay, so the bank account is, I think, a great way to show that creating strong self boundaries is about your life as much as possible. The possibility of every time you do something positive for yourself, healthy for yourself, toward the dreams that you want, you're depositing money in that bank.
Yeah.
And boundaries are a way to get you there. So it really is loving and kindness and positivity to yourself. You're depositing into the boundary bank account through taking time to care for yourself, setting yourself up for success in all areas of your life so you can have a chance at not burning out. So many
Yeah.
people I talk to and even hear about online, everybody's talking about burnout, imposter syndrome, stress, all of those things. When
Yes.
you're taking good care, ironically, the boundary would be I'm not going to take calls after this time because you're going to do something to balance that out that's positive for you. You're depositing in to the bank.
Let's get down to biz. What would be the first step?
It's getting serious.
Yeah, I want to put this into action.
Yes.
What's the first step?
Okay, we want to take the temperature. So,
Okay.
listeners, you can start to tune into, pay attention. It sounds like Jenny has some work to do with what her situation was yesterday.
I know. I'm taking notes.
Pay
Notes.
attention to situations where you feel drained, overwhelmed, resentful. These are
Okay.
signs that boundaries are needed. If you are honest with yourself, anxious achievers, and I've done this for myself, resentment feels like a lot of going over things in your mind where you'll say to yourself something like, why does that person think that's okay? Or why does that person think that's fair? Or can you believe that they did this? If you're saying any of that about
Yeah.
someone in your life and you have a repeat offender, that's resentment.
Yep. That's right.
If you have a boss, they always think they can pile work on me. Okay, there's a great place to start. Now, I'm not saying you're going to change that person. That boss is going to be the way they are, but you can move the needle with self boundaries in your relationship to that boss. This is more of a strict way to say it. So I'm sorry for being so direct if this is offensive to some people, but your choice is, do I want to spend the rest of my life on this Ferris wheel, or do I want to make the boundary? If I think in any stratosphere that that person is going to work with me, then I am incorrect.
Sorry.
That's it.
Boom. Yeah.
If they change, have a party and then consider that a bonus in your boundary bank account that you don't need to spend that time. But I would say any person in your life, work life, great place to start, or personal life, whatever feels best to you, take stock of what's going on in your life and where you need boundaries. If not, you'll be off track, not centered, not at your best. And it starts to erode your self esteem. And it's so fast that that happens.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that because
Really?
yesterday, yes, swear, for me, it happens fast. I literally have to pause and regroup before
Yeah,
I respond. That's been
right.
a big thing for me. It's not my normal. So I have to go and undo it. So I'm like, no, it's better for me to pause and filter and process and then respond.
From what you've said, this piece is a big one for you. And I know it's a big one for everyone. But when you're in that situation, if you know someone has behaved that way and they've done it before, if you're listening to them, you're changing what you thought before you engaged with them. What I mean by that is, if you're on it, this happens a lot with couples. It's so hard to catch these things for yourself. But if you've ever noticed, if there's a couple that you've been around in your life and they fight. The one spouse will call their friend, complain about whatever those things are. Now, when they're complaining, that's how they feel about the situation. That's
Right.
just whatever that venting is. And sometimes when you're heated, it's not exactly, but roughly speaking, for sake of discussion. Then they get back with the spouse and they quote unquote work it out. Whether they do or not, that's irrelevant to me. But the point is they get back and have a conversation. And then the follow up with the person they vented to often sounds like this: well, he didn't mean it, or he was tired, or she was tired, or whatever the excuses were. And then they just keep going in this same cycle. And then they fight, and then they call you, and then they this. So those types of themes and threads in your life, I'm not saying you have to fix them. I'm just saying if you want to, that noticing those themes is your step one. So at least you know, what are my opportunities here to focus on that would move the needle for me in my life? Reduce burnout, reduce stress, reduce feeling like you're losing your mind sometimes. That those situations that you can think of and identify, those are your best places to start. And I'm a big proponent of, I'm getting like so excited because I'm like, if you do any of this, you're going to love your results. But the other piece is, if you're a little bit too triggered by one of your main line crossers, if you will, you can start with something that feels a little bit easier and more distanced and work your way up to it. And this is not a fix overnight. These are things that are insidious and they're in your personality. And because you have these lack of boundaries where are needed, it means you're a wonderful person, but you're also doing the best for yourself. It's all with good
Right.
intentions that you get caught up in this, but it's for your best health to just start to peel it away. And then once you start to see it, it'll become more of a momentum that makes it easier.
Yeah, I like what you said about how setting boundaries, it doesn't make you a bad person, because I know in the past that's how I've felt. If I'm setting a boundary, it's going to be hurtful, but to them, but it's not about them. It's about you. And by not having the boundaries, it's hurtful for you. So we want to take good care of us, ourselves.
The really sad part is that, think of it, let's use a boss employee relationship, because I think it's a good way to take the sting out of it. No one has a problem complaining about their boss.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you get into a situation where you feel uncomfortable or you feel that you're stressed or burnt out, whatever the negatives are that we just went over in the personal example,
Yeah.
then it becomes, if I look at it from their perspective, I have to set all that's bothering me aside. That's where the choice becomes, in these situations that are so severe, it's either you or them. So when you look at it from their perspective or you make it okay, then you're not factoring in how you're treating yourself. And so if you flip that selfishness feeling around, how about the kindness to yourself, or who's taking care of you in that
Right.
situation?
Exactly. They're not taking care of you. You're responsible for taking care of you.
And that's exactly like the bank account. Would
Yes.
you tell somebody else, oh, here's my bank account information, you can decide how much money I get to keep? Again, if you want to deposit money in, but the person you're having an issue with, I don't think they're going to do that unless they're trying to buy you. And then it's not worth it.
That's right.
Metaphor went off the rails.
Whew, but it was so good. All right. So what's the next step?
Okay. Get clear. It's
Okay.
the whole idea of firm but flexible.
Right.
And let's just broaden this out. Let's make it just nothing to do with anyone else. Let's talk about yourself with your commitment to your health. I want to be healthier. just in general. This is your goal. I need to set
Yeah.
some health boundaries. Okay.
Right.
If you say, I'm going to wake up at 5, I'm going to do 25,000 push ups, 36,000 sit ups, and 42 crunches and jump on the balance beam for 62 minutes, that's
Too
way
much.
too strict.
That's correct. Yeah.
Even if you say, I'm going to wake up at 5 and I have to do this exact workout, that may work for some people, but that may be too strict for others. We're talking about something that is self-discipline in a forceful way, in a hammering home way, strict, too strict. If you say, I'll try to get up early, that's too loose. I'll try to get up early. How many times is that actually going to happen?
I'm going to open my eyes at 5, and then at 5:02, I'm going to close them.
Yes, exactly. If you say, I'm going to wake up at 5 and move my body for 30 minutes, now we're in the Goldilocks, the just right.
That's right.
I'm setting the time because you have a schedule, you have a life, all of these things. So you have to carve out the time. You can't
Yes.
hope the time space continuum will change for you.
Right.
I'm going to wake up at 5. I'm going to move my body for 30 minutes. That's the empowering. That's the self-compassion part. Because the days you wake up at 5 and you're exhausted, go for a walk.
Yes.
Now, it's the same thing if you just follow me over to that, how that self-boundary can help you with your external boundaries. If you say to somebody, I'm not available between this time and this time, that person who doesn't need a stricter boundary would only contact you if it was an emergency.
Right.
If you have somebody in your life, okay, and then let's bring it back to the self one more time with the health boundaries. Let's say you say, I'm going to get up at 5 and move my body, but then you get up at 5 and you sit on the couch. Then you need to reassess for yourself how you can find that sweet spot. So you're always, the self-compassion part is, as long as the health goal is happening, then keep it in that balanced approach. If you say, I'm going to wake up at 5 and move my body for 30 minutes, but for some reason you're not doing that, then we go back and reassess. You have to keep tweaking it and find that balance, but you have to want the health goal in the first place. The way to get there is that self-discipline, that boundary balanced with the compassion. Now bring it back to how those boundaries help you with others. I'm not going to answer the phone between such and so a time.
Yeah.
Maybe, Jenny,
Yes.
if the person calls you, and then you end up a few minutes after that time frame explaining yourself, it would be wise to reconsider boundaries with them, because explaining yourself to someone who's crossing your boundaries is not the result you want to end up in.
Exactly.
So it's that compassionate part to say, I'm such a sweet person. I have issues getting into this space where I end up explaining myself to somebody who I don't want to be explaining myself to them. You did great. You've moved the needle in that situation. So there's the self-compassion. Look at me. Maybe a year ago, I would have answered in the day or whatever that is. But now it's time to reassess and take that to the next level. That's where the self-compassion is, because self-discipline will be, well, I failed. So then forget it. I'm not even going to try this.
Right. Right. But you'll always have another opportunity to practice.
Yeah. Those people. I was watching Kathy Bates in the new Matlock show.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
The whole premise is her daughter died of a drug overdose, and she uses the fact that the old Matlock show, the guy was a lawyer.
Yeah.
She goes into the law firm where they somehow allowed this drug to stay available even though they knew it wasn't safe. She's going back to get revenge.
Oh,
And
okay.
in one of the episodes, she's dealing with a drug addict, and it triggers her because that was her daughter. And the person relapsed and she was helping them. And she said, addiction is a patient beast.
Yes.
You can be on your good path for so long, but it waits for you. And you can do 300 days where you succeed, 365 days, and then 2 years, 3 years, but it's always waiting for you. And it only takes one falling off to fail.
Yep.
It's the same thing here. These changes have to be, in my mind, slow, methodic, and real so that you're learning and growing from them. And the compassion will keep fueling you to keep progressing, because boundary crossers and your lack of ability to come through for yourself is a patient beast, just like Matlock said. So
Yes.
it's always waiting for you. And unfortunately, you can do 9 great interactions with yourself, get up and go to the gym and have that great success. But then if you're not flexible with yourself, then you will not go to the gym anymore. And then the boundaries with yourself fall off. Same with other people. Patient beast.
Oh my gosh. That was beautiful, Allie. That was. So
Thank Kathy
true.
Bates.
Kathy and Allie pulling it together for this one.
Maybe we could have her on the show. That seems like a realistic goal.
I think that, yes. Well, I mean, why not? I'll reach out to Kathy. Okay. I loved that. All right, can we put it into action though? I need action item. What are we doing every day?
Okay. You want to figure out a place to start. The way to do that is what we talked about in step 1. Start to notice your things that are bothering you.
Okay.
That's step 1.
Yes.
Is that what you mean as far as the action?
Yeah.
Then step 2 is set a clear path for yourself. If you want, let's pick a work item and say that you have a problem shutting down. Pick your time boundary. I'm going to shut down by 6 p.m.
Okay.
Then you want to think about, what are the things that usually get in the way of me shutting down at 6 p.m.?
Yes.
And then you want to make a clear, so the boundary that you set with yourself is, I'm going to shut down by 6. And then you're going to think about, what pissed me off in the first place that it wasn't happening? Why isn't this happening? And think of your repeat offenders. It could be you need better time management because it's actually you maybe you're chatting in the morning. Maybe you're working, but you're also texting. Maybe you're staying too long in meetings. Maybe you're taking on work for your coworkers. Maybe you're being too helpful. There's all the million things that could be stealing from your boundary bank account. It could be the Hamburglar. I don't know.
We don't know.
Get real with yourself and see what those big offenders are. What's throwing you off track, and make a simple list of things that you can do that would remedy those situations. And there's always start somewhere, reassess. And then as you're going along, I would say, if you think of the first week as, I'm probably just going to have a bunch of bumbly mess ups and I'm not going to do it, just keep retweaking, re-evaluating. Look at where maybe there's some other things that you could focus on. Maybe you do great and you get into a good rhythm. Note what you're doing for yourself. One of the things I will always talk about, you get into a good routine and then you think you don't need the very tools that were making it go well. It's kind of the same as they always say on the bottle of your antibiotics is the word I was trying to think of. Holy moly. Matlock would have known that because she's a pharmaceutical expert on the show. That's way beneath her terms. Now Kathy Bates is not going to want to come on the show because I couldn't think of antibiotics.
I'll still get her. Don't worry.
Okay. So it says on the bottle for your antibiotics, take all the way through to the end.
Yes.
It's the same thing. People start to feel better and then they don't take their medicine anymore. So the very tools, let's always plan for things to go well. If you put these tools in place to stick to your boundaries and it works, always continue on with doing what you did in the first place. And
Yes.
then just keep repeating the process, but always remember that you want to prioritize you, rest, recharge, protect your energy. These are all things I'm always focused on. It's very hard for me to recharge without guilt, but it is crucial to keeping you going and keeping you healthy. So weave in rewards for yourself. If you're doing well with what you decided, you're probably going to have extra time because you're not running yourself ragged. So sit outside in the grass, sit outside in the sun. If you're in a
Yes.
dark, snowy place, then get out there and play in the snow. Whatever makes you happy so that you can then go to the next piece that's kind of bothering you. And then you just keep working your way through the list. And I think we can all count on the fact that there's enough stress to go around in everyone's life. So there'll always
Yeah.
be plenty of material.
That's right. And start getting familiar and comfortable with the word no.
Do you feel that deep, Jenny?
I do. I do. Make no your friend.
Yeah. Okay. So really cheesy way to think of it with what you just said. Every time you stick to the boundary,
Yes.
you might be saying no to something, but you're really, I think I've said this before, but you're saying yes to you.
Yes. That's right. That's a t-shirt. I have to start writing these down for us.
Yes. Well,
No.
wait, what?
I just said, but really, no.
But really, yes. But is it also a no?
Yeah, it's a maybe.
Is this another Einhorn is Finkel, Finkel is Einhorn?
It is.
What are the nuggets that we want to send our anxious achievers off with today, Jenny? Anything come to mind?
My little nugget is you don't have to be perfect at it. Just keep trying, keep figuring out new ways, get out of your comfort zone a little bit more with these practices. It's not going to always feel comfy, but don't second guess yourself. Just keep working at it and really just be kind and compassionate to yourself as you're working through this because it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yes. And something to remember, I think this about you, Jenny, and I see it in every single person that I have coached who has trouble with
Yeah.
this is such a beautiful soul. What makes you amazing and sweet and kind is also your Achilles heel. That's what makes you fall prey, especially to these situations. If you really looked at the scorecard for where you come through for you versus coming through for everyone else, and this doesn't mean you can't still be amazing to people. When I was in my second job out of college, I went into pharmaceutical sales. They taught us that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your business. So you focus on your biggest clients if you want to make the most money. Take extra white glove service care of those 20%. So if you think about your boundaries and you're a beautiful soul, there are a small amount of threads in your life causing the most havoc for you.
Absolutely.
So if you just get tuned in to what they are, it probably hurts your stomach to really think about, like Jenny said, just have compassion for yourself. Tune into your stomach when things are going on, because I bet that when you feel like you're questioning yourself or you're wondering if it's fair, like there's a lot of stickiness to the places where you can really make a big impact in your life. And the reason that there's so much extra with those situations is because they're the situations that are not good for you. That's why it's happening. That's why it doesn't happen in probably 80% of your life. The
Right.
20% that makes this necessary is where the work really is. So you just want to keep chipping away at that and have compassion for yourself because it's having such a big effect on your life because you're a beautiful soul.
That's right. Well said, Allie.
I hope that you will all join us again for our next episode.
Yes, please.
And thank you for joining us today.
See you next time.